Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Suspect Sky. How many of you remember the Berenstain Bears? I received a YouTube message from a member of the audience who said you need to look into the Berenstain Bears problem. And so, I did a couple Google searches, and I just uncovered a very, very interesting controversy that's been making a lot of news in our field recently. And I'm going to be objective here, and I just kind of want to cover this story a little bit.
Phone? He said phone? He said phone? Can't you understand English? He said phone.
Home?
You're right. That's E.T.'s home.
E.T. Home phone. Home phone.
E.T. phone home. E.T. phone home. E.T. phone home.
He's lost. He's alone. And he's 3 million light years from home. In spring 2002, only in theaters,
I'm keeping him.
Steven Spielberg's masterpiece will come to life
Home. Home.
for a whole new generation. Experience the mystery,
Wait, what is it?
I don't know. Something scary.
the wonder,
What's happening?
the call
E.T.
Phone home.
that started it all. With
First day of Christmas, my true love sent to me a partridge in a pear tree.
On the second day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 2 turtle doves
And a partridge
in a pear tree.
On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. On the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 2 turtle doves and a partridge in a pear tree.
Of universes and infinite parallel universes constantly being created is literally flow of reality and time as we know it. In other words, imagine a line, right? And then from that line you put a smaller line that is a fraction of that is a fraction closer to the original line, and then the same thing for that line, the same thing for that. Eventually you'll end up with this triangle shape, and that triangle shape is infinity technically in a confined space. So just like quantum physics and superposition, everything can be in a state of either positive and negative at the same time, rather than positive or negative, as we know in our mechanical classical world here. But that means that there is an infinite number of parallel universes in our multiverse. Let's move that there and focus more here on these lines. In our multiverse, and there's an infinite number of these realities, and in each reality, as every electron spins an animeter of an animeter to an animeter to an animeter around a nuclei of an atom, we're catapulted into an infinite number of alternate universes. Just imagine this is the start of the universe. This is our original timeline, right? But as soon as this starts, we are infinitely catapulted into an infinite number of parallel universes. And somewhere infinity down the line, here's our universe, right? And then we're constantly shifting into alternate universes as we speak. And that expansion of infinite universes is our reality as we know it in time.
All the leaves are brown. And the sky is gray. I've been for a walk. On a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm. If I was in LA. California dreaming on such a winter's day. Stopped into a church. I passed along the way. Well, I got down on my knees. And I pretend to pray. You know the preacher like the cold light.
All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. I went for a walk on a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm if I was in LA. California dreaming on such a winter's day. stopped into a church. I passed along the way. Well, I got down on my knees and I began to pray.
All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. I went for a walk on a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm if I was in LA. California, dreaming such a winter's day. Stopped into a church, I passed along the way. Well, I got down on my knees as I began to pray.
Okay, everybody, I hope you're ready for this. Please take a seat, sit down, make sure you're sitting down, hold on to your hats. This is one of those Mandela effects that just took me for a whirlwind, and it gave me that feeling that you can't even really explain. It's just, this is so mind-blowing. Biggest Mandela effect since Dolly not having braces. Publishers Clearinghouse. Ed McMahon, right? Yeah, well, no. Found this on Rabbit Zone here. I'll put a link to this. You want to check this out. Got the cool Twilight Zone music. Oh my gosh. So let's get into this. I had to do my own video. I mean, I recommend you watch the other one, but I couldn't help but covering this. Ed McMahon's mysterious association with Publishers Clearinghouse. Mysterious? When Ed McMahon passed away, one question was asked repeatedly. How will Publishers Clearinghouse notify their winners now? The answer's easy. They'll notify their winners the same way they always have, because Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. What? Why is Ed McMahon associated with Publishers Clearinghouse? Oh, I don't know, because he was the voice and the guy who showed, I don't know. Oh, wow. For many years now, popular sweepstakes myth. Wasn't a myth where I'm from, where my consciousness resided previously. It wasn't a myth, okay? The myth places Ed McMahon at the front door of Publishers Clearinghouse multi-million-dollar winners with an oversized check and a bottle of champagne. The public's determination to associate McMahon with PCH is baffling. Yeah, well, the Mandela Effect's baffling as well. Ed McMahon was never a spokesperson for Publishers Clearinghouse. And I repeat, never associated with them, everybody.
The 5 women nominated in this category are sexy, smart, and talented. And most important of all, really, really funny.
The nominees for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy are Jennifer Aniston, Friends. Patricia Heaton, Everybody Loves Raymond. Bonnie Hunt, Life with Bonnie. Sarah Jessica Parker, Sex and the City. And Jane Kaczmarek, Malcolm in the Middle.
And the Emmy goes to... Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Sarah Jessica Parker has received 10 Emmy nominations for her work on Sex and the City as an actress and a producer. This is her.
The category covers TV series, miniseries, and TV movies.
And here are the nominees. Is that right?
Yeah.
Kim Cattrall, Sex and the City.
Megan Mullally, Will and Grace.
Good. Cynthia Nixon, Sex and the City.
Parker Posey, Hell on Heels, The Battle of Mary Kay.
Jenna Rollins, Hysterical Blindness.
And the winner is Kim Cattrall, Sex and the City.
Interview with the Vampire.
Ladies and gentlemen, your host for the 67th Annual Academy Awards, David Letterman.
It's another blockbuster year for Hollywood. The motion picture Interview with the Vampire did over $100 million business. Over $100 million business.
And the nominees are Elliot Goldenthal for Interview with the Vampire.
Hi, I'm Neil Jordan, and I'm here to introduce Interview with the Vampire, a movie about the saddest vampires you'll ever see.
I wanted Interview with the Vampire to be a departure. I wanted to, first of all, I always thought the vampire was the interesting one, and I wanted to know what went on behind the scenes. So I wanted it to be a departure. I wanted you to fall in love with the vampire and see things through his eyes.
Interview with the Vampire, as every good story, probably had 50 versions, that you can do. And I don't think you're going to find one as solid and as well done and serious with the material as the movie that we did.
You have to read them, especially Interview with the Vampire, because it's from Louis' point of view. You have to read it very carefully to find the clues to who Lestat is.
Nominees for Best Achievement in Art Direction are
Interview with the Vampire. Art direction by Dante Ferretti, set decoration by Francesca Lo Schiavo.
Oh, that was so good the way you said.
Hello. I don't normally do these videos, but I have discovered something that I find incredibly disturbing, and I want to share it. And I don't have an answer for it. I don't even have a good theory for it, but I want to share these examples. The internet has this thing they call the Mandela Effect, and it was created because of a guy named Nelson Mandela that supposedly died but is still alive, and people remember him dying. I'm not a conspiracy person. I don't believe in crazy ideas like that, but I did grow up reading my Bible, and I did grow up knowing certain passages, and the more I explore this, there are 3 or 4 that are just unexplainable, and I want to share those. So here's the first one. What I've got here is an actual Bible that is on my iPad. I've got an older, cheap King James Bible. Oops. And I've got a Greek Concordance Bible. So I'll let you take a look at these. So first, it's the Zondervan Parallel New Testament in Greek and English. This book was purchased, it's a New Testament, purchased way back when I was at a Christian radio station in my teens. And this was the year I graduated, January 1986, by Sean Blevins for studying cross-reference. And it's the New Testament. What you see here is on every page you have the King James Version, then you have the New International Version, and then you have the original Greek interlinear from where it was translated. So it's really hard to say that this doesn't map up, right? So the first thing I want to show you that I think is interesting is we've all heard about Passover, and that was the Jewish feast. Well, look what we have here. If we go into Acts chapter 12 in this Bible, we see in verse 4, and when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4
quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. Easter. When did the Bible have the word Easter in it? You remember that? Here's the actual Greek. And it says over here in verse 4, he put in prison, delivering him to 4 quaternions of soldiers to guard him, intending after the Passover. So when did Passover change to Easter? In the King James Version. Now here's the cheaper King James Version. This is just a little $2 Bible I bought about 15 years ago. Really cheap, made out of really simple plastic pages, printed in China, right? It's just one of these, that you give away or that you put in somebody's basket of like for foreigners or people that maybe soldiers overseas to have as a backup Bible. And here it is. Easter. Do you see that right there? The word is Easter. Amazing. So when did that change? And you say, well, that's nothing big. Well, let's move on to something big. The next one would be the Lord's Prayer. Remember the Lord's Prayer? Well, here's the Lord's Prayer. Let's go to Matthew. Everyone knows where it is. We've all heard it. We all memorized it in summer school, Bible school. And, here we go. Matthew chapter 6. And there's the Lord's Prayers, right? Lead us in temptation, for thine is the kingdom. Look at this. And forgive us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Now, that's not the way I learned it. It was forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And what's interesting about that is it's not said that at all in here. In fact, in the other Bible, in the little cheap Bible, all King James Bibles now, and for supposedly since the beginning of time, since it was built, since it was originally written, never said the word trespasses. It only said the word debtors. Here it is again. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. So that doesn't make you believe that something's going on. Easter shows up, trespasses change to debtors. Let's go another level. If you go into the Bible, you may have heard this story of wineskins. That the Holy Spirit, that Jesus is talking about the Spirit of God, and you can't put the new Spirit into old wineskins because they'll burst. Guess what? Wineskins is not in the Bible anymore. It's not there at all. Well, you know what is there now? In the King James, the good old King James? I'll show you. Bottles. Bottles, that's right. We don't put new wine in old bottles. Here you go. I'll skip over, show it to you in Matthew and Mark and Luke. You see that? Neither do men put wine in old bottles, lest the bottles break. All 3 Gospels now say bottles. None of them say wineskins. It doesn't even make sense. If you put new wine in an old bottle, how does the bottle break? It's a bottle. It's not a wineskin. So that's completely changed. You say, well, is it like that if you go into the original Greek? Here's the original Greek, Matthew 9:17. Let's go look at it. Matthew 9:17. Here it is. Here's the original King James again, and guess what? It's bottles. Wineskin's gone. Neither do men put new wine in old bottles, else the bottles break. But if you come over here and you read that same verse in the Greek, guess what you get? Neither do they put wine into new wineskins that are old, otherwise they are burst. And the wineskins and the wine is poured out and the wineskins are destroyed. And then they put new wine into wineskins fresh, and both are preserved. So the original Greek had wineskins, and we learned it as wineskins from the King James, but for some reason it's magically changed to be bottles. Why is that? Why is it now bottles? I can't answer that.
My Bible's been changing for over a year. Yes, over a year. The first thing I noticed that was not quite right, I noticed a verse repeating itself, and I knew that in my King James Version that I've had for many years, I had never ever noticed that. Verses just don't repeat themselves. So I forgot about it for a while. I thought, well, I do have a lot of very strange experiences, so, that's part of my life, so I forgot about it. Well, the other day I wanted to look up some verses that I heard explained on YouTube that had been changed. So I looked them up and I was reading them and listening to the videos, and so when I got done with that, I got my notebook out, I started making notes, taking a lot of notes, writing down anything, that might have to do with the Bible being changed. And I prayed and I said, Lord, if you want to show me something about this, because I know that you are not the author of confusion. God is not the author of confusion. I'm very fortunate. I know the Bible. I've listened to thousands of sermons. I was born into a very well-known, big-name religious family. Did a lot of traveling. I've been all around the world. So when I say, I know how a scripture should read, I do, because I've heard it hundreds, if not thousands of times. So after I prayed the prayer and asked God to show me, something very interesting happened. I immediately opened up my Bible, and this is what I found that was never in my Bible before. All right, it's, let's see, Luke 12:51. Suppose ye that I am come to give you peace on earth, I tell you nay, but rather division. Division? I've read this Bible many, many times, and Jesus always said, I have come to bring a sword. Division? Suppose ye that I am come to give peace on earth, I tell you, nay, but rather division. And then 52. For from henceforth there shall be 5 in one house divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. The father shall be divided against the son against the father, the mother against the daughter, and the daughter against the mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. This hit me very hard because this has always been one of my favorite passages in the Bible. So when I saw this the other day, I was basically horrified. I've been checking on the verse every day to see if it changes back. It will not change back. Many people know about this verse that Jesus said, I have come to bring a sword. I will try to cross-reference. I did the other day, but today I cannot get onto my internet. So I've been trying, but I can't come up with anything. I need to go get a Strong's Concordance. But that is a very big change. Division? Everything is about division now. Have you noticed? Everything is about division. Division. That's a word that's coming up a lot in politics, in the news. But I tell you right now, This word does not belong there. It does not belong there.
You may consider this next group of speakers somewhat unusual, if not to say strange. We have the creator of what is the world's first quantum computer, in person here from Burnaby, BC. We have the president of the super high-tech company that makes Canada's iconic Canada Arm, but whose hobby it is to try and reconcile modern science with the Bible. And we have a filmmaker from Los Angeles who has stumbled on what appears to be evidence of life after death. And my thought in putting together this somewhat improbable combination of speakers was that out there where the theory of the very large and the very small connect, and out there where our 13.7 billion year old and expanding universe touches the void, you come upon mystery and the possibility of God. That was my thinking. So let's begin with Jordy. Jordy, I don't understand much about quantum computing except that it's supposed to be the next big thing in power and in speed, and that you are the only company in the world now actually making one.
Well, hopefully after this 17 minutes, you'll understand what they are and be excited about what you might be able to use them for.
These are really big deals. They come in at about $15 or $20 million a piece.
Something like that.
And have been bought by major American research and corporations.
That's right, correct.
All right, Jordy.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. So quantum computing is a very technical subject, and I'm not going to talk a lot about the specific details, of which I'm glad. I'm sure you're glad. There are literally tens of thousands of some of the brightest people in the world today trying to build these machines and understand them. And I'm going to tell you why. In my last 15 years of working on this type of stuff, I found that scientists divide up into two categories of zealots about this field. The first half are people who are absolutely entranced by the physics of these things. This quote is from a respectable scientist, in fact, one of the founders of this field, that may look a little strange to you who don't follow theoretical physics, but there is a very clear prediction that our most successful theory of nature makes, and that is that there are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch, and whether you chose to come to this session or not. Quantum mechanics makes a very specific prediction that all of those are as real as the thing that you remember. And this is bizarre, because we don't see those other things. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps the most exciting of all of these that we have within, or almost within our grasp right now. So people from a physics background love this. They want to understand the world. They want to understand the universe, how it all works. There's another type of person who tends to come from the computer science side that's like, yeah, okay, that's all great. But there's a different thing going on here, which is just as exciting, if not more, and that these machines that supposedly can do this wild stuff, let's forget about how they work, if you could build one, could solve problems that you could never, ever solve with any computer of the sort that we built. If you took every single atom of silicon in the world and made the most sophisticated conventional Intel-style processor that you could build, There are problems we know of that I could write down on a sheet of paper that you could never, ever, ever solve with that thing, that you could with this kind of machine. So that's very exciting. Humans use tools to do things. If you give humans a new kind of tool that can do things that you couldn't otherwise do, imagine the possibilities. So you may think, well, this is all fine and dandy, but aren't these things in the realm of theory and speculation kind of in the same regime as other futuristic things you may have heard of which may be allowed by the laws of physics but aren't here yet? That's not true. There are, in fact, many of these machines deployed now in openly available research centers following the model that was used to introduce supercomputers to the world. They're too big and ornery and difficult to operate to put in your home, too expensive also, but you can give them to a place which will manage them as a shared resource that will offer that service to the world. And there are two of these now. One of them is at the University of Southern California. It gives these computers access to these new resources, maybe you could call them parallel universes, in order to do something that you couldn't otherwise do. And that's not the only one. In fact, the one I'm going to come back to and talk to in the context of the story that I'm wrapping this in was recently installed at NASA. And Google was the primary interested party that pulled this whole thing together. And Google was the primary interested party that pulled this whole thing together. And this one is really exciting to me, because what they're going to do is apply this machine to an area that I think is fundamentally important. It's a crux of our future as humans. And that's, can we build machines like us? So, building machines like us might be possible. I certainly believe it is. I might be wrong. But what I do know is that the types of approaches that people are taking now to build intelligent machines benefit immensely from what this machine that we've built does best. So what this center is about is applying this beautiful new computational idea in the service of trying to make intelligent machines. Now, I can't think of anything personally any cooler than trying to use quantum computers to build intelligent machines, so this is very exciting to me. This is what they look like. There are two of them. These are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths, big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space. Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive machines. At the heart of this big box is a tiny chip about the size of your thumbnail. And on this chip resides all of the wonder and magic that makes this thing go. I'm not going to describe in any mathematical detail how it all works, but let me give you an analogy. In quantum mechanics, there's this concept that a thing can exist in two states which are mutually exclusive at the same time, quote unquote. And I'm using those words because the English language was developed before we had concepts to describe what these things actually are doing. But I'm going to give you a roundabout way of understanding this. Imagine that there really are parallel universes out there, and now imagine you have two that are exactly identical in every respect, all the way out to the horizon as far as we can see, down to the last little atomic detail of every single thing, with only one difference. And that's the value of a little thing called a qubit on this chip, which is a contraction of quantum bit. And that qubit is very much like a bit or a transistor in a conventional computer. It has two distinct physical states, which we call 0 and 1 for bit. In a conventional computer, these are mutually exclusive. That device is either one or the other and never anything else. In a quantum computer, that device can be in this strange situation where these two parallel universes have a nexus, a point in space where they overlap. And when you increase the number of these devices, every time you add one of these qubits, you double the number of these parallel universes that you have access to, until such time when you get to a chip like this, which is about 500 of these bits, you have something like 2 to the 500th power of these guys living in that chip. So the way I think about it is that the shadows of these parallel worlds overlap with ours. And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours to make an effect in our world. Now, this may sound very odd to you and bizarre, and in fact, I am using language that a normal theoretical physicist probably wouldn't use, but this is, what I'm telling you is absolutely correct and in line with the way that these things actually work. We've been doing this for some time now, and in fact, we have our own version of Moore's law. The doubling of the number of these qubits on the chip has happened once a year for the past 9 years.
If there are other universes, they're next to ours, and this actually relates to my theory of the Mandela Effect and how the particle accelerator altered the weight of one electron and therefore destroyed our universe and shifted us into the universe that's directly next to it, and therefore things are different in this universe.
So you believe that this thing that some people call the Mandela Effect is actually real?
Oh, it's absolutely real.
Can you describe what it is for people who have never heard it before?
Sure. So the Mandela Effect is the effect of some people thought that Nelson Mandela died at a certain time, and other people remember it as a different time. And this goes for a lot of other things. You know, Star Wars, classic videos, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Everybody knows that. Well, if you actually look back to the original film, it's not Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. It's Magic Mirror on the Wall. And some people actually...
Which, of course, it's not.
It's not,
in
right.
the reality I grew up in.
Right, exactly. And, I mean, some people in this reality, I guess, maybe didn't make it from our last reality, I'm thinking. I'm still trying to figure out why they don't remember it. And some people do. But anyway, though, that is the Mandela Effect, and we are living in an alternate expansion of our universes. Even in my own scientific notes, I've found rewritten signatures and things that are a little bit different from originally what I wrote.
So how did that actually happen? Let's take your notebook, or let's take Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, like an old film, animated film. How did it actually change?
Well, it never changed. We changed. You see, we were moving relative to our universe, and then our universe destroyed, so now the universe started to move, or I guess our parallel universes, our multiverse started to move parallel to us because we were out of alignment, and that just destroyed everything. So technically, the universe didn't change, we did.
I just had a little pause there. Just my accident. We weren't deleting anything. People were saying, "Oh, what's going on?" Because I had a text coming in. So there are two studios, let's say the Disney studios. One studio, Studio A, creates a film that has Magic Mirror on the Wall. Another studio says Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Is it two separate studios, or what happened?
No, same studio, different timeline. So, good thing we have a multi-layered napkin.
This is very high-tech
Yeah.
in terms of our graphics.
Definitely sophisticated.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so as I said,
Because I love that one, because everyone remembers Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. I mean, there's
Everybody
no
does.
one, and there's a whole Sally Field, you like me, you really, really like me, blah, 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 and now
build
it's
it,
you
they
like
will
me.
come, build it, he will come. the peace sign.
Oh, really? I didn't know about that one.
Oh yeah, there's so much. I have a record of all the ones that I've been able to
Of course,
match. And,
of course you do.
And some other stuff that I should tell you personally about later.
Okay, can't
anyway,
wait.
so yeah, infinity down the line from our original timeline, where here's ours, and then, of course this timeline is only moving forward because, well, the expansion of infinite number of realities behind it. But what happened was we made this universe sort of out of balance, and our universe,
Because of the collider, the super collider?
yeah, we altered the weight of a single electron, which I believe shifted us into a parallel universe, considering that we caused a chain reaction that could have catastrophically destroyed our universe. I mean, even when we thought about starting it, we thought our universe would implode, and then it didn't, and we're like, oh, it's okay. Well, maybe it did implode. We just instantly got shifted to another universe.
And that's your belief?
Right, in my belief. Of course, this is just a theory, and it's still being developed.
Okay.
But, yeah, maybe in that infinitely small moment of time, we were instantly shifted.
Could it also be that there were some people at CERN who are kind of like quantum hackers, and they go, we have this little vulnerability in time-space continuum, and we're going to go in and we're going to pick these iconic moments in our civilization, mirror, mirror on the wall, things like that, and we're going to change them just to screw up people's heads to realize that reality is not as they think it.
That could be completely possible, although there's some stories, fairy tales, campfire, scary tales that occurred at CERN, supposedly, or that are set at CERN, dimensional beings or satanic portals, a whole bunch of other crazy stuff. And a lot of people believe they have to do that to consistently maintain our universe, or bridging two universes or dimensions even together. Now, then again, they're fairy tales.
Okay.
And since when are fairy tales real? But then again, all fairy tales are based off of something.
What the fuck?
back to eternity.
Right.
Go ahead.
So, when this universe was destroyed, then again, here's our progression of infinite expansion of parallel universes. Here's ours. When this one just destroyed itself, and as I said, there's an infinite number of parallel universes. That means there's an infinite possibility that everything contained within our infinite range happened, existed, will happen. It's hard to wrap your mind around that there is something larger than everything.
Which is, how do you...
It's
right.
even a paradox as itself. It's an oxymoronic phrase.
So, other than you and maybe a few other people, we're really not going to figure this out, are we? And any of this stuff is so vast and so amazing. It's just like, people's concepts are completely blown of anything once they tap into these larger realities. Anyway, let's finish this and see if we can at least understand straight lines here.
Right.
And the Mandela Effect.
Right. So, universes that are right next to each other, and as I said, these are infinitely close yet infinitely far away from each other. We have our universes. And the farther away a universe is, the more different it is because of each individual event. So, when our universe was destroyed over here...
And this was, you think, when CERN Super Collider did its experiment?
Large Hadron Collider, yeah.
Or the Hadron?
Large Hadron Collider, right.
Okay.
And, so after our universe and timeline was destroyed, we were, let's zoom this in a lot, zoom, 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 and the universe that's directly next to ours, it's just directly next to ours, energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transferred from form to form. So, if this one was eliminated, all the energy from this universe created or transferred a universe that was right next to us.
So the original universe is mirror, mirror on the wall. The transferred to universe is magic mirror on the wall.
Right. So in this universe, it's pretty much almost exactly the same as ours, for the fact that we're all here, almost, and that everything that we see is pretty much the same.
What do you mean almost?
Almost as in, like, I don't know. There's an infinite number of possibilities, so there has to be at least an infinite possibility that somebody on this planet is gone from that time.
I can't sleep. Forgive me. I took a shower. I was in bed. I didn't plan on anybody seeing me. I have no makeup on, and I don't care. The Mandela Effect for me has been around since before I knew it was called the Mandela Effect. And it started with the Lindbergh baby. In my reality, the Lindbergh baby was never found. And I remember watching something on the History Channel and I thought, wow, that's really strange because maybe, I'm wrong and then it was, more and more things like Shirley Temple. I remember her being dead at a young age. And then of course, Mandela. I actually remember Mandela dying in like 88 or 89 in prison. So I became aware that it was called the Mandela Effect when I looked up the Berenstain Bears. And actually it was because I found a book and I'm like, that's not right. And that's how I found the Mandela Effect, probably 3 years ago. But this is beyond, oh my God, the capacity for me to grasp in my mind. It's hitting home because it's my husband. And it's unbelievable. I can't sleep. When I was growing up in school, Pangea was not the norm. It was a theory. Continental drift theory was a theory, but it was not taught in schools. I graduated in 97, so in the 90s it still was being talked about, but it definitely was not accepted. Continental drift theory was just still a theory, and it was not mainstream at all. Now my husband graduated in 91, so it definitely wasn't there for him and his generation. And if you haven't looked this up, and if you're not aware of that, and you're from the understanding that it was not taught in like the 90s and the 80s, it actually was accepted now, if you look it up, in 1960. So it's being taught in public schools since 1960. So we were just laying in bed, and my husband, you know, just like your husband or your wife, they tend to tell the same stories. Well, my husband vividly tells this story in my memory of him sitting in class and somebody who was maybe, you know, not the most capable student. Maybe they weren't, you know, putting their most forward. And he was maybe like a pot smoker, you know, it's whatever that age. So a pot smoker, and he wasn't the brightest, and he really didn't contribute much to the class. And he literally said, well, it looks like that one and that one fit together. You know, could that be? I remember my husband telling this story about how the teacher said, no, she kind of made fun of him, and they all kind of made fun of him, and they laughed a little bit about it, and then, you know, that was it, you know. Because we've talked about how Pangea now is accepted. And he tells this story, he's told it a million times. For anybody that has a husband and a wife that tells the same stories, you know those stories. Well, tonight, for some reason, the story came up, and he doesn't remember that. In fact, he has always been taught. He's always been taught that Pangea always existed. And I go, no, honey, you know, you told this story. You've told it to me several times. And he goes, no, I've been taught that my whole life. It was called continental drift, and he's serious. Well, what do I do with that memory? And where is my husband that used to tell me that story?
The point is that it's a parallel universe to ours, so it is not our universe. It's not ours. But
So we are now not in the same universe that we were in when Mirror, Mirror on the Wall was a part of a film.
well, that's what I'm theorizing. Yeah.
So we're in a different universe.
Exactly, completely different universe.
Even though it looks almost otherwise completely the same.
Is exactly the same, except for that 0.000000000000000000000000000 infinite number of zeros, 1%.
Yes.
Difference.
Right.
And that 1% difference is large on our scale, or even small on our scale, but it's still different. Enough that it's able to contain our energy, but not enough that it's the same.
Infinite universes and just the very concept of infinity is pretty mind-boggling. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like, but it affects everything on at least a theoretical basis.
Well, yeah, everything and nothing.
And there we go.
Yeah, so it's pretty uncertain, but then again, uncertainty is uncertain. And uncertainty can be certain and uncertain at the same time.
There you go. No, I think that sums it up. There it is, quantum physics right there from, say your name.
Maxwell Lawton.
And you are a?
Well, I'm a theoretical physicist.
Of course, and you're how old?
13.
There you go. Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
I'd turn back if I were you. I believe there's spooks around here. That's ridiculous. Spooks.